Hey everybody, it's Tim Hepworth here with Fly Fishing Board Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. I'm here tonight to bring you another quick tie. This is going to be for Season 4, Episode 1. We are going to be doing the Sbr Sulphur Nymph tonight. Go ahead and grab your kit, okay? If you haven't purchased your kit yet, you can still grab these at www.flyfishingbowriver.com/TNLS4. Okay, you can go ahead and grab your kit there. So we're going to start by opening this up. We're going to go in there and grab our Episode 1 bag, looking like this. You're gonna pull out the package in there with the nymph in it. This is the guy we're gonna be tying today. This is our Sbr Sulphur Nymph, just like that. Okay, I want you to go in there into your kit. We're gonna get that size 14 nymph hook out, get the appropriately sized bead placed on the hook, and we're gonna get ready to tie. So what I'm using for thread tonight, I'm gonna go in with a tan or a light brown colored. This is a UTC 70, something a little smaller for this nymph. We're gonna start our thread just behind the bead, work it rearward to about the hook point. We'll let it dangle, trim out that tag. Now we're gonna go to our mallard flank feather. This is what we're gonna use to make not only our legs and wing, but we're gonna make our, we're gonna make our tail out of it as well. So I wanna come in here and grab somewhere around the neighborhood of 8 to 10 of the little fibers off of the stem. Just gonna tug and pull them right off. I'm gonna be left with something that looks like this. Okay, we're gonna use that as our tail. So we wanna keep those tips as aligned as possible. We're gonna measure a tail about a hook length, in length, off the back of the fly. We're gonna tie that in right here. Keep it up on top of the hook shank, if you can. Cooperate for us. We're gonna take a couple of wraps and then we're gonna let our thread hang so we can adjust the tail length if we need to. I'm gonna pull that into about there. I like where that's sitting. Take a couple more thread wraps back, just to the top of the bend of the hook, but not going into the bend itself. We're gonna trim this out up here. Gonna make sure I have a nice thread base laid down so I have an even underbody. Next material I'm gonna go for is my pheasant tail. Okay, we're gonna grab again somewhere in that 6 to 10 of those fibers. We're not actually using the tips today, but we're gonna use them to tie in with as we create a body out of this material for this fly. So I'm gonna make sure my tips are nice and aligned. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna tie them in right back at the tail. Tie them in, I'm gonna advance my thread forward all the way to behind the bead. Okay, now I'm gonna take these, be nice and careful, don't pull too hard, you don't wanna break them. We're gonna wrap these forward all the way up the hook. This is gonna be the main portion of the body of our fly. Once we get up to the bead, we're gonna tie that off, but do not cut off those pheasant tail. We're gonna still use that. It's gonna be our wing case, okay? So what I'm gonna do is once I've tied in just like that, I'm gonna take and fold those back. And I'm gonna leave a full bead length, if not a bead and a half, back like so. This is where we're gonna create the thorax of our fly, okay? Next thing we're gonna go in there with is we got this sulfur colored dubbing. Okay, we're gonna make not a huge dubbing noodle, but a decent little one, probably a few inches long. Nice and thin and sparse though, so we're not getting too much on all at once. We're gonna spin that up onto our thread, and then we're gonna create a nice plump thorax with this. We want there to be a definite definition change between the body and this thorax, okay? And I come in here, like so. Make sure it's got a nice change in definition. I'm gonna use up all that dubbing. I like how that looks. Now what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna go back to that mallard flank feather, okay? So we got our mallard flank like this. We're gonna use the tips of it this time. So what we need to do, we need to come in here and we need to kind of pull all these feathers back away from the tip. Make sure we have an even amount coming off both sides of the stem. Once we're happy with it, what we can do is we're gonna go in here, we're gonna trim out just the tip. Get rid of that. So I'm left with something that looks like so. Got a few more on that side than the other, so I'm gonna even those up. Trim it out. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this back forward so it looks like this. I got that nice little V in there. Now I'm gonna strip the rest of what's off below. I don't want any of those plain looking fibers that are just white. or any of that fluff. You're gonna use more legs than you think on this fly, so don't get too crazy and take too much off. But we are gonna take just a couple more off each side, and I'll show you what it's gonna look like when we continue. Just like this, okay? Got those nice markings on there, gonna represent our legs coming off, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna lay it right on top, going either side of that pheasant tail that I have there. Okay, I'm gonna push this all the way down so that the stem itself is right up by the bead. Okay, right between my fingers there. I'm gonna switch hands. I'm gonna take a couple of thread wraps, making sure that I keep that feather right up on top of the hook. I'm gonna do that clockwise spin of my bobbin again, just so that doesn't jump away from me. Do a couple wraps, make sure that you got that right on top, like so, okay? Now, what we want is those legs to extend almost to the back of the pheasant tail. Now how do I adjust that? I'm simply gonna come in like so. I'm gonna grab that stem and I'm gonna pull. And that's how I'm gonna determine the length of my legs. And they can wanna move on either side of you, so you can adjust them with your fingers so that they stay on the sides of the fly. That's still a bit too long. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna pull that pheasant tail through the middle of him, of those legs, and that's what's gonna determine and keeping them on their respective sides of the fly. So we're gonna work that pheasant tail back through, kind of see where that's gonna sit and make our wing case like so. So then we're gonna decide on that length, which I'm still gonna take a little bit more off. There we go, I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna pull that pheasant tail forward, lay it over top, take another thread wrap, another one. That's gonna leave us with something looking like that. That's our legs coming off the back of this nymph, extending almost to the back of that pheasant tail. Okay, giving us that nice looking wing casing we get out of that pheasant tail again. Now that I know that's good and secure, I'm gonna go in here, trim it out. Make sure you have it secured before you trim or you're gonna lose all that work we just did. Okay, I'm gonna quickly whip finish. We're gonna add a little bit of UV resin and we're done the fly. I'm just only gonna do a 2-turn whip finish because I know that UV is gonna hold everything in place. Trim my thread out. Make sure I clean up anything up here that I can clean up. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my UV resin. Have your light ready as well. All we're gonna do is we're gonna put a nice little dollop basically right on here, extending back to the edge of the pheasant tail at the back on the body, just to make a nice little bubble and make sure all of this stuff stays where it's supposed to. So once I got a little drop on there, don't overdo it. We can use the bubble here, extend it back a little, make sure you cover up all the thread wraps, like so. Hit it with our torch, so it's not going anywhere. And there you go, guys. That is the Sbr Sulphur Nymph. Seen it here, seen it there. I'm Tim Hepworth, again with Fly Fishing Boat Outfitters and Thursday Night Live. This has been another Quick Tie. We'll see you next time.